you, you'd conceded 2 tries, both of which were from individual errors from kicks. So you can kind of, they're not a breakdown of defensive systems, are they? You know, you've not left gaping gaps in your line for them to stroll through. So you can kind of, you recognise that they were doing a decent job defensively. But at the same time, you've got to think, well, eventually some of these desperate flung passes might actually start to stick, because you know that they have, that Wire have talent running through them, or they certainly should have. So yeah, of course you get nervous at that point. But I have to say, I thought that the Catalan scrambled really well, and the fact that Wire took the 2 with, was it about 10-12 minutes to go, something like that? Was it into the last 10? I can't remember now.
It was 11 minutes on the clock was when they took that penalty in front. Now, I was a little bit surprised, because at that stage Warrington were not really taking advantage of their opportunities. I can't remember if that was just before or just after the Ben Westwood drop, when he was put into a hole, the only good piece of play that Kevin Brown pulled off the whole game.
It was after that.
Yeah.
Because I've made him out that it was 15 minutes to go when Westwood knocked on.
Yeah, so when Westwood knocked on, even though they didn't score and they were struggling to execute, what I did think at that stage was they were looking likely. They were looking like they were kind of putting the right sort of pressure on. They were definitely, I think, becoming more likely to score. There was the overlap that Lynham thought he had that he didn't quite have when he dived in. I think I said 12 yards out before, but really it was 7 yards out, and it just wasn't. It just wasn't realistic. There was the one where he got tackled into touch from that. So, and then there was the Toby King thing I mentioned about. There was a few other chances though where at least they were moving the Dragons defenders out of position. The Dragons' intensity didn't drop as such, but their fatigue was starting to come into it, and they were rotating the props quite regularly at that stage. When Busquet went off, I think they lost a bit of impetus going forward with the ball. They started to look a bit nervous. They started to make a few errors, didn't they? Both penalties and drop balls in exit sets. They finally lost the grip on that perfect completion rate. And to me, it looked like Warrington, if they were gonna score, were better to try and score a try. I didn't agree with taking the 2, but I'm not a take the 2 kind of person. But I think worry about that.
No.
What if they'd have got the 2, but then scored a try that they didn't convert? They still would have been in the same position. Yeah. So I think try and maximise your opportunities up that end of the field. But
for me, it's a sign that you're panicking and that you are worried that best case scenario you might look into another try and take it to extra time type.
Yeah,
situation.
I mean, there was a confidence from them, I suppose, in the fact that they thought the Catalans weren't going to get up the field and slot a drop goal over that would have meant it was irrelevant the taking the 2. But so there was a confidence in them from that standpoint, but I still wasn't quite sure that they were. It just showed to me that they kind of thought they were going to struggle to break them down, and maybe on the try line wasn't where they were going to make hay attacking wise, which was a bit of a problem for me. Then I suppose the only other real talking point left then was not giving the goal line dropout. I think that was a mistake from Hicks. I do think the ball was grounded on the line by Fuad Yaha, but Warrington reacted poorly to it, and it kind of, they got penalty, cleared out a bit. They kept getting chances though, didn't they? They kept getting the ball back. They kept making their way upfield. They kept getting penalties. So it was...
Yeah, well, as you say, Catalan had started to... they'd started to really fatigue at that point, and I remember Sam Mower dropping it on trying to bring it away from his line, and there was a couple of little errors and stuff like that. But again, they're just fatigue errors, aren't they? They're just, as you say, they're tight. Their players were there was
definite fatigue. The intensity in the heart though was still there, and I think that's what led to them clinging on. I thought the last 10 minutes, Casti and Mikel Simon were really good. Then Casti had to go off because he was just absolutely gassed, and Busquet came back on right for the last couple of minutes, I think, and and so I just thought they were brilliant. I just thought the intensity from the Frenchmen in that forward pack was outstanding. Every time Busquets carried the ball in the middle 40 minutes of the game, he was the most purposeful forward on the field. Every time like there was a chance for Simon and McAlorum, they didn't always make all the tackles stick, but they got to the wire players dead quickly. They shut them down, they got in the faces, and they prevented them from being able to do the right sort of things. It was those intangibles. It was that desire to me.
Yeah, it was. It was that kind of. They just weren't going to be. They just weren't going to be denied. I didn't think it was. It was really, as worried as you are in terms of the chance of Warrington coming back. I did think.
Well, you worried. You were really getting Catalan for a day, weren't you?
I was. You know what? I was fully bought in. I was fully bought into it. I don't know, because everyone around. So just in terms of where we were, so there was a couple of Wire fans on our kind of side, but in front of us there was 3 or 4 Featherstone fans, and they were kind of shouting for Catalan, and there were some Sheffield guys on the other side, and it seemed like around us, other than the kind of the 2 Wire fans, we were all kind of up for Catalan. So I kind of got swept along with it a little bit.
It was very much the same around us as well. There was a few more Warrington fans around us.
Yeah, because you were down that end, weren't you?
We were closer to their end. Yeah, we were sort of on the sideline towards their end. But there was a lot of neutrals around that were all pretty much going for Catalan. I mean, Cass, who sat with me, he was up jumping out of his seat with, like, punching the air sort of thing as early as the second minute when Lewis Tierney went over. So I kind of knew that we were not in for much of a neutral experience. Everyone was up apart from the dozen or so Wire fans that were sat just behind us. So that was quite interesting.
It's one of the, I was saying just before. I can't be neutral at any sporting event. I don't care what it is. I have to pick somebody. I have to pick a team, and obviously I was Catalan for the day, and it's nice to support a team that wins a final.
The Lance Todd, then, the Man of the Match award. Do you think Gigo was a fair and deserved winner? Was there someone you would have given it to ahead of him, maybe?
I think he was as good a candidate as anybody. Yeah. I thought it was a team performance. Everyone kind of played their role to an extent. Certainly towards the second half, nobody was error free. So everyone had their moments. But yeah, I could understand why a glamour player gets it over somebody like Casti or Busquets, or whoever.
I would have been, if I was in the press box and had a vote, I would have been struggling to pick one of the French prop forwards, sort of the French middles, let's say, Busquets, Casti, and Simon. I would have been struggling to separate those guys. Maybe Simon and Busquets maybe gave away more penalties, although Casti gave away one as well. So I was struggling to separate them. So I think it was that moment, that 40-20 kick followed by that set-up execution. For the second half, it kind of shaped things. So I think that's Gigo probably deserved it on that. But wonderful stuff all around.
Yeah, I mean McAlorum played well. As I said, the generally speaking, the Catalan players outperformed their opposite numbers. So they all had a shout, in my opinion. But yeah, well done to Leg of Lamb. It was a good story, I think.
Yeah, definitely so. The right sort of man as well to be interviewing after the game for the fans to get on board with. Not that they weren't going to be on board with anything anyone said at that stage. They were absolutely jubilant in that area.
I have to say that I thought both in the kind of the build-up stuff and after the game, I thought Casti was very eloquent, and for somebody who's just come off the field and he's clearly busted a gut, I thought he really represented really well, and he was an interesting character, which is something we need to promote, isn't it, as a sport. So I thought he represented himself very well in the club in the broader sense.
Excellent. Okay, shall we do the stats?
Yeah.
One particular key stat was crucial in Catalan winning this game. Catalan made 10 errors to 14 made by Warrington and had an 87% completion compared to 70% by the Wire. Other than that, you would think from the stats Wire could have won this with more metres, 9 breaks to 3, fewer penalties conceded and a 6% better team tackle success rate. Warrington had the edge on more of the key stats, but it was that ball retention, ball control aspect that really won it for the Dragons in the end.
It was interesting when you say about the team tackle success rate, because you did mention it when you were summarising there about scramble. Like you might miss the guy initially, but I don't know. I think I certainly noticed Tierney doing this a couple of times. He might have missed the guy, but he kind of ran him into a cul-de-sac, so somebody else got him, and then he came back at him. So
Tierney and Mead like almost supported each other through missing tackles in a weird way. They both did a lot of that. Yeah, I agree. And what the Catalan side did in general, because there was missed tackles down the middle of the park as well through like McAlorum, who always misses a bunch of tackles, to be honest. When I say misses, he bounces off a bunch of tackles, gives the attacker a second opportunity to go, but because of the intensity of how quick they would get into these Catalan players, these Warrington players, they weren't completing the tackle successfully, but they were having the effect they wanted, which was to shut down the thinking time, and that was like what you talked about that Tyrone Roberts kick as well, and those sort of aspects of it.
Yeah.
Individually, Tony Gigo had a try assist in 158 metres, and of course that big 40-20. Julian Busquet had 110 metres, Fuad Yaha 103 metres, Mikel Seaman 101 metres. For the losing Warrington side, Tom Lynham 154 metres and 2 clean breaks, Bryson Goodwin 141 metres and 5 successful offloads, Darryl Clark 49 tackles and 101 metres, so he still did plenty, Darryl Clark. It's just wasn't quite with that same zip and effectiveness as we normally used to see. And Stefan Ratchford 136 metres. I think what that kind of tells you from those numbers a little bit is Warrington had more coming out of their own end to do with the backs getting bigger numbers in the meter stakes, whereas Catalan won the field position situation in the game. Okay.
Yeah. That's because there's not a single Wire forward there other than Clark with more than 100 metres. Chris Hill's absent and people like that. You kind of there's
Hill
not
got around about
100
metres, but certainly it was the backs that did most of their running, whereas it was the forwards who did most of the running for Catalan, because they were getting the ball generally in better positions. So
yes.
Okay, in terms of the predictions then, obviously just the one game to go at. I went Dragons, Sarah went Wire, so I stretched my lead out to 109, plays 106 in that regard. Okay, that is the main match covered. We're now going to move on to other results from the world of rugby league. Other results then sponsored by jkmartwork.com. Check out jkmartwork.com, where you can buy prints, canvases and more of James's stadium paintings. All UK Super League clubs are covered, and a couple of clubs outside the Super League too, as well as football stadiums, cricket grounds and more. JKM Artwork can help you find the perfect gift for the sports fan in your life. Not loads to go through, let's be honest, Alan, but we did have a League One game completing round 22, which began last weekend, but it's the traditional now Friday Night Lights game on the eve of the Challenge Cup final. The London Scholars were rewarded by a 4-figure crowd. Over 1,000 people turned up to watch this one. It finished London Scholars 20, Keighley Cougars 6, so another upset on their travels down south for the Cougars, and a big win for the London Scholars. And we had a match review in from one of our friends who was there in the flesh.
We did. So Dr. Hideous said, we did a point a minute up to 18-0 playing great rugby. Then the rain came and scoring stopped. Cougars were more organised in the second half, and Scholars gave away too many repeat sets, but had excellent last yard defence. Final score 20-6. Moment of the match was Scholars' Amari Caro chasing a kick 70 metres, kept his eye on the ball so well it ran into the post. The post was okay, and Caro was soon back to his feet.
He does paint a picture with words, doesn't he?
He certainly does.
Okay. Into the NRL then, it was round 24, so the penultimate regular season round down under, and it's kicked off with the West Tigers keeping their playoff chances alive. by winning 22 points to 20 over the Manly Sea Eagles. Then the Warriors